Now, it's impossible to discuss the subject of sharpening for the internet until you also talk about the issue of screen resolution. And it wasn't so long ago that the standard was between 600 and 800 pixels on the long edge. That was the standard for sizing your images on the internet. But as time goes by, we can see with this statistical chart here, as posted by w3schools.com, that screen resolutions are definitely on the rise. And as of January of 2012, fully 85% of people out there had a screen resolution that was higher than 1024, and a lot of them were in the 1200, 13, and 1600 pixel range. So what does that mean in terms of how you're going to size your images? Well, you should feel very comfortable in sizing your images for the internet at 1,000 pixels on the long edge. What I usually do is 1,000 pixels on the long edge for a horizontal shot, or what we know as a landscape orientation, or 800 on the long edge for a portrait orientation or a vertically oriented image. And that ensures that nobody's going to have to struggle to see the image, and that it's going to be large enough to convey the emotional impact contained, and will make it relatively easy for the viewer to see it. So, let's talk about 1,000 pixels on the long edge for horizontal, 800 on the long edge for vertically oriented. Now, it's also parenthetically worth taking a look at the browser statistics, and you may not be aware of this. Firefox and Chrome both have very sophisticated color display algorithms. In other words, an image will look slightly different in Internet Explorer than it does in Firefox or Chrome, to the detriment. So if you gear your processing for viewing on either Firefox or Chrome, you're going to hit, see right here, you're going to hit probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 70% of all people who have internet connections. And look at the market share of Internet Explorer. As of June of 2012, it is dissipating rapidly. Look at the trend here. Internet Explorer is fading as a browser. Firefox has leveled off quite a bit. In fact, Firefox is declining slightly, and Chrome is the one that's really building market share. Safari and Opera both we can pretty much ignore. Firefox and Chrome will make your images look a lot better on the internet, which then translates into how you process. You want, like we go back to the very, very beginning of a discussion of treatment of images, and that is garbage in, garbage out. You're going to shoot raw, you're going to import as a 16-bit TIFF, you're going to process as a 16-bit TIFF, and the very last thing you do is convert to JPEG at 1,000 pixels on the long edge or 800 pixels on the long edge, and your images on the internet will sing and dance. Trust me, this will be the case. All right, let's take a look at this image, and what we're going to do is resize it for 800 pixels on the long edge, just like that. So here we have an image that's been sized, and I want to look at it at 100%. Now what I'm going to do, my typical everyday adjustment for this image is going to be probably in the neighborhood of, see how bad that looks? 50%, 0.5, remember less is more, and a threshold of 0. Now, yes, you can see noise on the internet. There's no doubt about that. But it has a lesser effect on the internet than it does in print, and so I don't quite worry about it. If you want to, you can probably go to 1 on the threshold and maybe 1.5 on your radius. And let's take a look and see how that looks. And yeah, you can just barely see the sharpening beginning to appear. And as we know, you sharpen until you can just barely see it on the screen. So let's go back to 0.5 and see if we can even see that. I doubt you'll be able to even see it. Yeah, it's just barely there. So we'll go back to 0 on this. Look at it again and again. That's the level where you can just barely see it coming up. And I would say even maybe 1 on this. Let's look and see how that is looking. I would say that's about right. 50 and a radius of 1 and a threshold of 0 for internet images where you have 800 or 1,000 pixels on the long edge. Now, obviously, if you're sizing for Facebook, I would go down to 800 or 600 because they do resize the images, and you want Facebook to do as little to the image as possible when you're putting them on Facebook. And a lot of other places, too, go to 800 to 600. And obviously, if that's where you're going to put your images, obviously you size for those dimensions. If you do have an 800 to 600 image you're forced to use, then reduce your radius to 0.5 and that image will sing and dance. It will absolutely look spectacular. But for 1,000 to 800, again, I would go 2, 50, 1, and 0. Now, you don't have to concern yourself so much with getting only the eyes and the nose and the mouth. I mean, you can certainly go down that road if you want to, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just don't think that for the work it takes to do all that, it's not worth it. But in print, it is most definitely the thing to do. But in internet, you can get away with it. Internet use is very, very forgiving on images. You don't have to be quite so particular about how you do things, but most assuredly, sharpening is one of those areas you want to pay close attention to, because computer screens are very good at bringing out the flaws in overly sharpened images, and that's what you don't want to do. So keep your statistics at 50 and 1 and 0, and I think you'll be in very, very good shape most of the time. And by the way, those figures pretty much go for either portrait or landscapes. There's not a whole lot of difference in the sharpening processes for either one of those two types of images. So just use the same standard for both types of images.